Welcome to Semi-Sages of the Pages,
Get ready.
because it's time to turn the page.
Welcome to Semi-Sages of the Pages. Woo! Yay! This is where we cheer, Dennis.
Yay! Hey!
And that's right, you heard a male voice. So today's a very exciting and special experience because we have a guest co-host with us on the podcast. So to start us off, I'm Morgan.
I'm Teresa.
And I'm Dennis.
Hey, we got it
Yay! 'Cause we need
See,
a
look
guest.
at me just kind of flowing right in there.
Right. First day, we're up. So let's start with what's on our page. Dennis, tell us all about yourself.
Oh my God, there's so much, but I don't want to bore everybody with that. So I'll keep it very simple. I'm Dennis Crosby. I write under the name Dennis K. Crosby. I keep the K in there because if you just Google Dennis Crosby, you're going to come up with a whole different slew of things. Plus, I was named after my uncle. I don't want him getting my royalties.
Uncles.
I write. I have two urban fantasy novels out: Death's Legacy and Death's Debt. They incorporate a lot of mythology. They take place in the real world, urban settings, primarily Chicago, which is where I'm from. And I have four short stories published. Two more are en route, and most of those are in the horror genre. I try to keep things weird and fun and wacky. But I'm from Chicago, as I mentioned. I've been in San Diego now about 8 years, and I think my writing career has grown tremendous. My writing career actually grew here, was born here, I think. I did some writing in Chicago, but I didn't really take hold of it and kind of get into it until I got here. Just got involved in a really great community, met some wonderful people like yourselves. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun to learn the craft, to actually practice the craft, and learn more about the business of publishing too.
Dennis, I know you're super humble and amazing, but I also know you're an award-winning author. So would you mind sharing with our audience what awards you won or have won?
Sure. So my first novel, Death's Legacy, you know what's strange about that book is as I was writing it, it was I was just writing to get it out. Like I wanted to get this story out. It started out as a manuscript that I not a manuscript, but a screenplay that I wrote for a screenwriting workshop I was taking while working on my MFA. And I liked the story so much that I needed to expand it. Like I felt like I wasn't getting enough of this character in just like 90 pages. Plus, let's face it, screenwriting's hard.
Yes.
And compared to novel writing, I'd rather write a 350-page novel than a 90-page screenplay.
Yeah.
So once I got it done, I was worried. I was like, who's going to want to read this? This is a female protagonist written by a man. Do people really want this? And I got really nervous, but I shared it with people and it was really well received. And so it debuted on Amazon's Top 100 in three categories: supernatural thriller, urban fantasy, and LGBTQ fantasy.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so that part shocked me. I mean, I'm like,
So you weren't planning that for that.
I was not planning that at all. Nothing, none of that. I was just hoping to get the book out. Maybe like, my mom would buy it. And I was pretty much banking on that. But then, people are kind of putting that bug in you, like, you should submit it to these contests. Let's see what happens. And so it took a silver medal in the 2020 Reader's Favorite Awards, nice international contest. And I was shocked by that. Actually, another friend of mine told me that I won because you submit the book for this contest and they don't tell you. Like they make the announcement. Is it September 30th? I think it's September 30th every year. And so you have to like look for it. September 30th. You have to look for it. You have to like be prepared and make a point, set an alarm and all this stuff. I didn't know that. I had no clue. So I'm looking at Instagram and someone's congratulating me for getting this silver medal. I'm like, in what? And so I go to I go to the page where I submit it, and they're like, yeah, you won the silver medal. It's got this whole review and yada yada. And so I was just like, oh my God, this people like this thing. Like maybe I
Mhm.
did a good job.
Yay!
Yeah. And so so I won that one. International Author Award. I won Best Fantasy. And it also was a finalist for Best First Novel. So I almost
Ooh.
won 2 awards from that place. And it also got a 5-star rating from Reader's Favorite as well. So, and third place for the 2020 Reader's Choice Award, different from Reader's Favorite. All of those things, like I said, I was just shocked and humbled and just pleased that people were able to connect and relate to the story and the characters and the work, which was there was a lot of work that went into it. As you guys know, there's a lot of work that goes into creating something, and you want it to be the best possible product. So winning those awards on your first novel is kind of like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I did something right. Maybe those classes paid off.
Yeah. And it is. It's a really, really, I mean, your first book is really good. The second was really good. I cannot wait for the third. It's a really great series.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a fun series to write.
Mhm.
It's a fun group of characters, and it's a fun world. I think that's what's so great about writing fiction is that especially in the fantasy realm, you can create anything you want. You know, you make your own rules. You decide you know, who's got this power, who's got this ability, who's gonna die, who's gonna come back from the dead. There's so many things that you can just kind of decide and control. It's much better than the real world.
So I have to ask you, because I know our audience is gonna, our listeners are gonna want to know, what classes were you talking about?
What classes?
Yeah, you said the classes were worth it. Which one?
All of them. So in 2016, I was sitting at work one day, and I work in social service, and the agency I was working at the time, the program I was running was going to close down, and we were waiting on a contract for another program that I was going to potentially run, but things were still really up in the air, and so I had been researching MFA programs, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. Do I want to go back and, I already have a master's in psychology. Do I need a second master's? Do I need to worry about this? I mean, if I'm just going to write, why do I need all of this stuff? And I think what convinced me, I had a conversation with a writer, and we were just talking about learning and always keeping yourself open to learning, whether it's through, separate workshops or reading a book on writing or, learning from an actual peer. And I said, well, what could it hurt? Let's try it out. Best case, I don't get in and I don't have anything to worry about. Also, best case, I get in and I can learn all this stuff. And so I applied to National University, and I got in. I gave them a writing sample, and they said, yeah, if you apply and you get in, you are definitely going to be in this program. And so I took courses like creative writing, of course. I took what I was surprised I enjoyed so much was creative nonfiction. I've always been the guy that makes stories up. I love fiction. I love kind of creating things out of nothing. And I always thought of nonfiction as obviously the direct opposite of that. You have to be very truthful and honest about what you're writing and do all the research, get everything right. Well, with creative nonfiction, you do that, but you can give it a little spin, kind of give it a little humor or, maybe add a few elements that may or may not be truthful just to enhance the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked at how much I loved that class. And I think some of that kind of informed even my fiction writing because, when you're developing characters, you want to be true to who they are. You want to be true to maybe what their backstory is, but you can also embellish on it a little bit. And I think some of that creative nonfiction work helped with that. Obviously, the screenwriting courses were great because that's what led to these books. So
I think that's a really great segue into craft, because as you were talking about creative nonfiction, I took a similar course, and it actually made me kind of fall in love with it I was on the opposite side where I would say that I'm a pretty strong academic writer.
Mhm.
So that would be my strength, would be like nothing makes me happier than cranking out an essay and getting the top in the class. Like I'm that kind of nerd that's like, oh, my thesis was 222 pages on Garcilaso de Vega, influence in the modern world, right? Like, and how
You're crazy.
yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm a nerd. I majored in political philosophy, right? So I loved like I'm a mega nerd when it comes to specifically writing. And especially I like to write philosophy, and the joke in philosophy is we're the only discipline where you can literally do 2 pages and not have to do a sentence break, right?
Exactly.
You don't have
Exactly.
to, right? One thought can go. So I really resonated with that. But as you were talking about nonfiction, I was thinking my favorite nonfictions to ever write or to ever embrace and also to read.
Mhm.
I just loved Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, right? And
Interesting.
right, and all of those mysteries that are based in real life, they're like
Mhm.
also really having a moment right now. And I think we were talking about before the podcast, Murders in the Building, and how there's, real crime is having such a moment right now. I'm
It's
definitely,
huge.
I'm a definite connoisseur of it for sure.
You can see it like just in the documentaries. People are
Yeah.
watching these true crime documentaries and things are taking off. And I think
And
what's
the podcasts.
Oh,
the
yeah.
podcasts are just the true crime podcasts. Oh my God.
Mhm.
People fall
Exactly.
asleep to listening about serial killers.
People are late to work because they're listening on the way to work and they don't want to miss this next part.
Yeah.
It kind of, I think it gives you a sense of like the darker side of people. And I think it also makes you question, like, what would you do in that situation? If you were either involved in the murder or whatever the case was, either as a direct participant or maybe a bystander or a witness, or even if you're you want to solve it, you want to be the person
Mhm.
that kind of gets all the clues and puts
Mhm.
those pieces together. That's, I think, where people find the most fun, is trying to figure out the end before it comes. It's the same thing with mystery novels.
Right.
You're reading them, you want to try to get to the end and like, oh, I know this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, and you get to the end like, yep, I was right, or oh my God, I didn't see that coming.
But there's a line, because what you want is you want the reader to be like, oh, I knew it, that was awesome. Not, oh God, I knew it, that was so boring. I knew that was going to happen.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the hardest part of writing a mystery, because every reader is going to be different. You will have some readers that are absolutely shocked at an ending that you're like, I telegraphed that thing in chapter 1. And you will also have the complete opposite of them being like, you told us that was going to happen in chapter 1. This book sucked.
Yeah, exactly. It's still about, you want to have that suspension of disbelief. You want people to kind of second guess themselves, even they want to be the experts in it, but you still want them to kind of say, "Ooh, maybe I'm wrong here." But you don't want to do it in a tropey way either. You've got to keep them engaged with every part of that storyline.
I'm reading I'm reading Donald Nass's, for like the 3rd time now, book on emotions, because I'm just fascinated with it. And he talks about 2 different approaches to this and how we should be thoughtful as authors. One is like what you're talking about, problem solving it, and you're reading because you think you've got put the clues together and you're feeling intelligent. And he said, but there's another kind that's equally powerful if we do it right, which is we definitely know who the killer is. It's dramatic irony, right? We know who the killer is. And we're screaming at the character, don't go in there, don't do that, and I think sometimes dramatic irony is used a little bit more in horror, but he makes the case in his book that it shouldn't necessarily be like that all genres, but especially I would think mystery, can have definite times where we as authors choose to say, okay, readers, we're going to let you know.
Yeah.
And he talks about how a lot of times when you look at sales and the emotional experience of the readers, that what I understood him to be saying, and maybe I got it wrong, so tell me, listeners, if I'm interpreting this wrong, but the way I understood him to say this was that sometimes people love the book more and it drives sales and stuff when they're rooting for the character, even though they know, because they're on this emotional journey where they're actually concerned about the character and they're scared for them, which I thought was really interesting.
And I was just going to say that I think that type of drive, that the way you drive the novel that way, it works best when you are connected to the character. It's really about the character development. You want to see them, do well or achieve whatever goal they have. Like, I read The Devil in a Blue Dress, Walter Mosley's novel, and Easy Rollins is a great character, right? He's just this guy. If you read the first book, Devil in a Blue Dress, all he wants to do is pay his mortgage. Like, that's his goal. He doesn't want to get involved in necessarily in this mystery, but it's a way for him to get paid so that he can pay his mortgage. And throughout the book, you are concerned about him being able to achieve that goal. And it's almost like the mystery part is almost a subplot to some degree. You go into it because you want him to be successful, because you're invested in him saving his house. He gets you invested in that character early, and I think that works well for authors if they can write such a compelling character that you get wrapped up and want them to achieve their goal, want them to succeed. You're willing to go on whatever ride they take. And yeah, you start rooting for them. You start yelling at them. No, don't do that. Don't talk to him. He's no good. It drives the story, but it also makes you a part of that journey and part of that mystery too. So you kind of want to help him solve it along the way.
So let's look at this from the perspective of craft and maybe talk about only murders in the building. And look at the three characters there. You had Martin Short's character. You had Selena Gomez's character, and help me on the third. Steve Martin's character. Thank you. I'm like famous person. But we can't. A lot of that success of that was playing off of the generational gaps between the characters
and the tropes I was going to mention. So Steve Martin's character is an actor who is famous for like an old mystery, right?
Right.
He was a former cop. Yeah.
Former cop. That he played this character, and then in real life he goes around and like uses lines that he did years and years ago in his real life situation. So that feels really disingenuous and super weird. And then Martin Short was like this producer, and he spends too much and makes too little. He's dead broke, and he's trying to use his charisma to even scam his own family into paying for things he can't afford. And so he's a kind of the scam artist rogue, but he's super charismatic and fun to watch. And then Selena Gomez's character is this very interesting wild card in the sense that she may or may not be living where she's supposed to live. Like, she may be a squatter. You get the idea that she's in some points this innocent, young woman who's being, life's handed her a really tough plate, and then other times that she's the one causing her own misery, and they play with that to decide who you're going to be invested in, making all of them the rogue at one moment, and then all of them the sympathetic character at one moment, right? So, and
you kind of have that doubt. One of them might be the murderer.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But for all of them, right? They set them up for all of us to worry about that. Yeah.
I think the way they wrote it too was great in the sense that, like you're saying, Morgan, they each had something to be sympathetic about. And at the same time, they kind of had something that, you kind of be upset with them for, could be potentially upset with them for, to make them kind of, that unsympathetic character. And riding that roller coaster, from episode to episode, I think was part of the fun, seeing how they were going to react to certain things, either based on their past, based on their present circumstances, based on their generation. Martin Short and Steve Martin were, obviously older than Selena. She's got a better handle on technology, so she's teaching Steve Martin how to text, and he doesn't know how to do these things. And so playing off of those things, I think they're also endearing. But it also then makes you wonder more about why is she helping him? Maybe she's trying to throw him off, or I think just the way that they put those characters together, it's just so very different, was brilliant. And then to throw a murder in it, it's again almost like it's a subplot.
Mhm.
You know, you're invested in these characters and how they're growing and what they want to do, but at the same time, you want to help them solve that murder, and you're trying to put those pieces together just the same way that they are.
I just had this huge aha moment when you were talking about how each of those characters is a trope,
Mhm.
and yet they add enough detail and humanity to it that that's where the humor comes in. So
Exactly.
the trope keeps them funny,
Mhm.
but then the detail makes them human. So they're able to ride this kind of humorous human line where they milk that trope a little bit, and but we allow it and we even like it, and it gives us that comic relief so that we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about them so much, and it like lightens the plight of their very serious real issues. And until you said it like that, I hadn't put that together.
I think I think tropes in and of themselves, like they get a bad rap. People think of them in this negative connotation, like, oh, it's always been done before, oh, this and that. It's like, yeah, but you can use a trope and still make the character compelling, make them interesting. You can still kind of add some elements to them. Yeah, it might be the grizzled detective who was kicked off the force, and he's got his office above a shoe shop or a pizza parlor, and there's a bottle of gin or bourbon in the drawer.
It's the only way he gets through his day.
Yeah,
Right.
divorced with a
Rum,
kid.
it's
Kid
rum,
hates
it's
him.
me.
But all those are like tried and true tropes of that like noir detective.
Mhm.
Smokes 20 packs a day, and it's like, yeah, that is very tropey, but you can still, in many ways, you could still make that character compelling. You can still kind of get someone to buy into that person.
Yeah. So I think in terms of craft, the key takeaway is to build your characters, make them sympathetic, and then build the mystery with it and almost make that almost a secondary part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we kind of touched on this, we were kind of heading in this direction. So we're going to turn the page over to industry and talk about the tropes and the genres, expectations of mysteries.
I was, so little known fact, I was a PI for 7 years before I got into social service. And so when I started writing, everyone assumed I was going to write a mystery novel. The fact that I went urban fantasy and horror was like, wait a minute, what? You spent all that time, following people in a car. What are you going to do a mystery? And so that's coming. Mystery is coming.
But Cassidy is what?
Cassidy is an investigator. She's a private investigator in her human job. And a lot of that is because it's what I know, but also, there are, even in fantasy, in the urban fantasy that I have, there are elements of mystery in it. She's got to figure things out. She's got to find things and locate people and all these things. And it's a part. Mystery is definitely a subset of that, but it cannot be considered a true mystery because it's not the overreaching or the overarching part of the plot. What I have found, and as I'm researching my own mystery novel, when it comes to mystery, you want to keep it mystery. Like, I had this idea that I'm going to write this mystery novel and maybe set it in the same world as Cassidy's in, and I got a big no, don't do that, because people that love mystery, they want their mystery. They don't want to have magic spells and witches and warlocks in it. If you're going to write a mystery novel, keep it to that real world type stuff. They can be investigating a cult, but there better be a real scientific reason why some strange things are happening. I think the audience that's what they crave. That's what they want. Again, depending on the type of mystery that you're doing.
Yeah. So could you do a mystery in space? But if you did, the mystery would have to be paramount, and the space parts would have to be very, very much like, hey, we're in space, and we're on a ship, and that's the end of it. We're not going to get into what propels the ship and life support problems, unless the life support problems are tied to the murder.
To the mystery, yeah.
Or
exactly.
the mystery, yeah.
Yeah.
there's fairies.
I knew that's where you were going to go. Fairies in space mystery coming soon.
Okay. Hey, I'm here for it.
Do you think that that advice is specifically for sellability? So saying if you are targeting this specific audience, the mystery audience, and you want it to sit on this shelf and you want to go traditional published, then
Mhm.
the agents need it to fit in these parameters so that it's successful in that space.
Yeah.
Or do you feel that that is true in like indie as well?
You know, the thing about I think being an indie author is that you've got freedom to kind of do what you want and make a story whatever you want it to be. But at the same time, you want a wide audience too. And so you want to be true to the story, of course. So if your story is going to have, fairies and be in space, so be it. Just find that audience.
They're there.
Because they are there.
We're gonna make you read at least one chapter now, just to watch your face.
So yeah, you can certainly do that. But I think for the genre itself, if you are trying to kind of break into it, because even as an indie author, I think I'm an indie author, and I want one day to be published traditionally. And so if I've got a mystery novel, I want to keep it kind of true to that genre, that specific subgenre, so that I can take my audience, and then blend in the other audience that comes in and really reach a wide kind of swath of individuals. So I think kind of keeping true to the subgenre is important, whether you're indie or traditional.
I like how specific you are being with your marketing plan, because a true marketing plan and a writing career, really being strategic really does help you.
Mhm.
And I know that that's definitely a mistake that I have made, but I'm okay with it, where I'm like, I'm just going to do this, and now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. But if your goal is to head in that traditional direction, strategy really does help. And I know Morgan is much more knowledgeable about that than I am.
Okay, not that I necessarily know more than you about anything, but I do like this idea for industry, because I know I've been saying this kind of a lot in the last couple of weeks, maybe month, and I think it's because it's become a large focus in a lot of novels that I'm proofreading for other people. And also I'm noticing it a lot in rejection. So I have a lot of friends who are getting full requests, and then they're getting rejections after their full request. And it's because they're genre bending, and which means they're taking elements of one genre and putting it in another genre.
Mhm.
And the agents are saying, we like this novel, but it's got too much elements of this. I don't really know how to get it into this space, and I need to be able to put it on a shelf and sell it. And I've also noticed that this particular area is really difficult to give feedback. So if you have an author who's in love with their book, but their book is breaking those expectations of the genre, and every time I've tried to be like, well, that's not exactly what, for example, Dennis, I'm sorry, that's not exactly fairies in space. It's really cute. You want to write that, but that's not exactly maybe what the average mystery reader is looking for. Like, it's not a cozy. It doesn't fit in noir, right? I'm sorry.
It's not a fantasy. It's not sci-fi. God only knows
what are you
it's
doing, Dennis? Fairies in space, right?
It's high sci-fi fantasy
with a mystery and a murder.
With a mystery and a murder, and it actually has that. So for those of us, like Teresa and I are actually writing this book, and we're just having a blast with it, because it's like a comedy, and we're just like, fairies in space, why not, right?
Yeah.
But it's got an absurdist feel to it too, right? That's part of the idea, right?
That's the genre.
But if you're literally trying to get traditionally published in a mystery genre, and then all of a sudden you had a fairy show up, like you were saying, or you have some unexplained mystery,
Mhm.
and your tone is gritty realism, you're going to have a very difficult problem, because people have an expectation of this book when they pick it up in the first couple chapters. And then when you throw in elements of other genres, it's to me, it's just like so much like my dad when I was little Like
It pulls
told me
people
milk and
away.
you gave me lemonade, and you never forget, right? You never forget.
Exactly.
You throw the book down and go, this is supposed to be about, and it doesn't matter how well it's done. If I pick up a romance and they don't end up together at the end, we have problems.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by, if you want that, stay indie, or find a small press. There are plenty of small presses out there that want those gender bending type stories. They're willing, because they know that this, if the author is a good writer, that the story is probably good.
Yeah,
It
for sure.
it might not sell to the masses in that particular genre, that the audience of that particular genre, but it has an audience.
Yeah.
And that small press can possibly find it or help the author find it. But yeah, if you're trying to break through, you've got to play by, those industry rules in order to get your name out there. And then, let's say you've got 5 mysteries under your belt. Well, 6th book, hey, guess what? They have fairies in space. Okay. Something happened at NASA, and my guy's now shooting off into the sky, and we've got some things happening.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
Yeah, who stole the shuttle. So with a magic lamp, and now there's a genie and there's fairies coming out of it.
Yeah, I think it's important too how it's marketed, in that the first pages have the promise.
Mm-hmm.
So same with the mystery. So it's really important. We talked about our aha moments in craft, about making it about character, but I still think that the beats of what the tone, right, and the mood of what a mystery should feel like really need to stay true in the first pages and stay consistent. I think when you're looking at especially genres, for me personally, and push back because this is just me, I don't know, but I feel like the tone and mood are clear in each genre, and that's us as readers feeling like I'm in the mood for this, so I want this, and so that's how it fulfills our expectations, is we pick the book because of the mood it gives us.
Yeah.
The cover, and I want to say that for mysteries, as I've been kind of thinking about the different type of subgenres for mysteries, the cover is the promise.
Oh,
Because think
that.
about the cover of a cozy, right? You've got probably a house, garden, a cat, maybe a dog, probably a cat, cup of
Window
tea,
with apple pie in there.
apple pie. Yeah, I mean, like if I say a cozy mystery, you know exactly what kind of a cover I'm thinking of. A hard-boiled cop one, what are we getting?
Right.
Something dark, smoking gun, alleyways.
Shadow,
shadows,
maybe a fedora on a hat. Although that's heading a little more into noir.
Yeah.
I'm saying that wrong. Private detective, you're going to kind of get something really specific there too. I mean, we were when you talk private detective, it's that the guy, it's that trope. It's the guy sitting over the pizza shop who's burnt out. He was a cop. He got dishonorably discharged.
Got one suit.
Fair. Sexy blonde walks in with the stilettos. He's drinking his gin with his, yeah.
And,
we know
she's almost always the killer.
Oh, she always, yes.
Or her sister is.
Yeah.
Her twin sister.
So that's interesting because you've got to stick to all that, but then it has to be totally fresh and original and new.
Right. Exactly.
And both things have to be done.
But I would actually question does it have to be fresh and new?
Well, the characters do. And I think the details of the story do. Like you can't, if you feel like you're reading a book you've already read before, that's not fun. So there has to be some kind of fresh take on it. Like you can be like, this is like da da da, but it can't be exactly like it. It still has to have its own twist, right? Like, for example, in my book, it's not the blonde that's the killer, it's the guy sitting at the counter that's looking for the killer, right? You just spin it so you think you know all the way, and then at the end it's a little twist or something. That's
twists
fun.
Twists are good.
When we think we know and we think it's doing something we're used to, and they're able to, just change it just a little bit so that it's, I don't know. But
it,
I-
it
No, you're
feels
right.
fresh. Yeah.
It's got to feel fresh, and the voice has to feel fresh too. I mean, that is the thing you hear over and over again from readers and agents. Is the voice strong? Is the voice strong? Is the voice
Yeah.
strong? You know, and what that really means is, do you have the right balance between the way you're using words on the page and then the way the reader is feeling about the images you're giving?
Hmm. And is it consistent? Through
Yeah.
twists are good, as long as it's not just out of left field.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't just throw the twist in because you've been telling everybody it's basically kind of leading up to this reveal, and then deciding it's something different just to mess with everybody, and not showing how it connects.
Well, because the other thing you don't want is, we talked about the things that you want. You don't want I knew it all along. What you don't want is what?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. Right. Precisely.
Yeah.
Or
Precisely.
that was like my first book. That was barely mentioned. What?
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want to make it obvious. And you've
Mhm.
read it so many times as the author that to you, you're like, it's super obvious. It's that
Right.
little hidden mirror underneath the corner
Right?
that I told you about in chapter 4 that I never
Yeah.
mentioned again.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the mistake I made as a first time author, for sure. That whole book has to be rewritten because of that.
It's a good book. I like that book.
We'll see.
Yeah, Teresa, you mentioned something about like cover, and the importance of a good cover. Title too, I think, is one of the things that'll catch folks. So, combination of good cover and title, but title can certainly draw somebody in, especially if it's kind of a play on an older title, but something that really kind of sticks in people's heads. And especially when you can see that title kind of play out throughout the book. Like Devil in a Blue Dress, it's about a woman who's kind of described through the first part of the book as she's wearing a blue dress. This is how people have seen her. This is how she then appears to Easy Rollins. And, is she good or bad? Is she the killer, or is she someone that you should be worried about? Is she not? Is she a victim? Those things that kind of make you question the story and some of the characters and how they might develop. I think that helps draw people in as well.
Mhm.
I like that. That's a really good point too.
Mhm.
And your title, and Dennis, you do a great job with this because you have the deaths series.
Mhm.
So you've got all three. You've got all three of your books will have the word death in them. And kind of, if you can have, if it's part of a series, working it through. Ileana Andrews with the Kate Daniels series, although not a mystery. She did that. JD Robb did that with it always ends with in death. So something in death, something in death. So, and there's pros and cons of that. Sometimes I'm like, is this a new book or not? Because I forget.
Yeah,
Like the
because
last one
there's
I
a
read
lot.
was.
That's really a good point. I also agree with you, though, that if you think about what we've said, by the time you pick up your book, you've looked at the cover and got the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Then the title has reinforced that expectation, that feeling. Then you open it up, and by the first page, you've got a setting that gives you a mood and tone that should
Mhm.
reinforce that feeling. And then something that like pulls you in. So by literally the second page, you as a reader have a clear expectation and a promise from an author.
Absolutely.
Because there's nothing worse than being told a book is like Clue, and it's not.
That's true. Do not read The Maid and think it's going to be like Clue.
It's
It
not.
Don't do
turns
that.
out to be Encyclopedia Brown instead. Not that those are bad, of course, but yes, you want something for what you're reading. You want that promise. You're
Mhm.
kind of settling in for this, and yeah, mysteries are interesting. And I say this to people who always ask me why I didn't write one before, and it's like, because you want to get it right. I may have spent 7 years as a PI, but that does not mean that I've got the ability to then craft a mystery novel. I wasn't out there solving murders or chasing drug dealers across the country, and wasn't Magnum PI in a Ferrari, taking down terrorists in Hawaii, you have to really understand not only that genre, but procedure and the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, the PI way to do things, which sometimes you straddle the line, and adding the authenticity in a way that makes sense, so that people can really, understand.
I love that word. I love that word, authenticity. Because it's not just that it's unique and fresh, but it has to come from a place of like authenticity to me holds the word sincerity.
Mm-hmm. I read a mystery once, and the PI was on a stakeout, and they were waiting outside a house. They were about a block, maybe 2 blocks down, but they had a clear line of sight, and they were waiting for the lights to go out. It was at night, and they were waiting at night because they wanted to go grab the garbage. Because as a PI, garbage pulls are a very common thing. It gives you a lot of information. People throw things out. They don't even think about it. And this is like, I was a PI before people started shredding things regularly. And even if they did shred things, they didn't always shred them well. And so we would have tape parties. We just get rolls of tape and we start piecing things together like a puzzle. But you can see kind of the authenticity in that work for a PI that is going to do a garbage pull, or that's going to talk to a neighbor about their subject, or that's going to the courthouse to pull records. Those things lend to really, informing a reader of what a PI really does. It's not just this Hollywood stuff where they've got a friend down at the police precinct that's going to give them all this information. They've got to actually do the work. And so that draws you in further. It's like, oh my God, I appreciate that. You took the time. You're either a former PI, or you took the time to actually research and talk to someone who told you, the little subtle things that have to be done during the course of an investigation. That's the piece that makes it authentic. And I think it drives people to want to connect with the character and with the story even more.
Mm-hmm. What are our final thoughts about industry and mystery? That it sells. It's a genre that always sells. It's definitely a genre that supports authors. If you want to be, sustained on your writing, that is a genre, that and romance, that will give you a career and can hold it, right? It's a popular, well-read genre.
I think as well, it's one of those genres. I mean, there's no easy genre out there. Romance is not easy. Sci-fi is not easy. Fantasy is not easy. Women's fiction is not an easy one. But I think mystery, to me, mystery is kind of one of those you really have to plan it out.
Absolutely.
It's not one that, to me, you can pants successfully. And I'm sure that there are some authors out there that do a great job with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that's when you have to plot.
Joe Lansdale, I went to a couple of his signings here in San Diego over the last couple of years, and he says he doesn't plot anything. He just writes his stuff out. And his Hap and Leonard series is a great series of mysteries. And I'm thinking wow, how do you do that? I'm thinking, I've always been told if you're writing a mystery, you want to start almost at the end and work your way backward. And I'm like, man, can you do that if you're just he writes it linear? He's just chapter by chapter. There's no skipping around. And I admire that. I wish I could do that. Maybe, one day when I'm a good writer, I can get to that point. But yeah, I think you're right, Trace. I think you have to, especially your first time out, plot that bad boy as carefully as you can, outline it, follow it as close as you're gonna, with anything you write, you're gonna kind of take some liberties here and there, make some adjustments. But yeah, I think you've got to outline it just to make sure you hit all the points that you want to.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to be moving to what's on your page.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Morgan, and she's going to talk about Culture Club.
We are having so much fun in Culture Club. So it's every other Wednesday, and we record that. We go live on YouTube. We really invite you to show up. We're loving it. We're starting to get a lot more participation. People are starting to chime in, and we're looking for what we do. Just to remind you, our theme right now is mystery. So we read The Maid, and then we evaluated what was working and what was not working, and we call it Even Better If. And so we shared that, and it was really exciting because we got a lot of people who are submitting their work, and we really would encourage you out there to submit your work to a culture club, because then what we do that day is we talk about the novel. So we talked about the maid, and then we read some submissions, and we read the first pages, and we talk about what's really working, and then even better if with our submission work. And we're getting a lot more people entering, and it's really, really fun and enriching to get to read people's first pages. And it's really fun because as you enter, you can tell us if you're, especially if you're friends with us or if you're on Discord, and then we can tell you, oh, we're live, we're talking about your stuff, and then people jump on, they get to hear, and then we leave it up on YouTube so they get to share with their friends and family. So it's a place where you can get feedback on your work, and it's really growing in momentum, and it's really fun. So if you have somebody who's just getting into writing, or you don't know if your first page is working, or you're interested in feedback, please submit it to us at Culture Club, because we're having such a good time with it. And it's just really, I'm just loving it. I'm learning so much from the amazing people sharing with us. Teresa, do you want to add?
I will just add, so we've gotten some wonderful feedback from people whose first pages we've read, and they're commenting on how helpful it is, how much they like it, the positivity. That is one thing that we are absolutely guaranteeing with this. We do not want someone to submit their first page and then walk away from it feeling like I'm a horrible writer. So we keep it really, really positive, and really focus on, as Morgan was saying, that even better if. So don't feel shy. In fact, you can, even if you're like, I truly, truly am shy about this, can you check in with me maybe before you read it on, just put a note in. All right. We want this to be positive, and we want people to walk away feeling like, yes, I'm a better writer now.
And the story is better. So one of the big two writers that gave us the first pages of their novels contacted me afterwards, and they said that a comment we made, one, Teresa, was one that you made about the character coming back, really influenced the plotting of their novel, and they have to go back and add and change some scenes because that was really influential in helping them get the flow right. And the other one, I can't remember who said the comment, but the other one was like, I hadn't even thought about doing that. And it makes so much sense that I was stuck. I wasn't sure, she just submitted the first page to see kind of where it was going. And she said it kind of blew open her story for her. So I just think it's fun to get feedback. It made me feel so good to be part of this. And we just love it when you share with us, because obviously we're on this journey together. And that's like why we made this on my Sages. So
yeah. So if you're interested in submitting, go to the semi-sages of the pages.com. It's very, very clear on there how to submit. Please do not send us an email. We're tracking how we're doing this, and so we're using Google Forms to help us do this. If you send us an email, we're going to respond with, please do it in the form. So that really is just helping us stay organized, because we are really busy.
And we welcome all levels of writers.
Absolutely.
All levels. So it's really, really fun, and we're having a blast with it. Dennis, thank you so much for gracing us and being like the most amazing co-host ever.
Don't pump up my ego now. Come on.
No, this was fun. I learned
was a lot of fun.
So much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We got to do our aha moments. So I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but we all need to come up with what our aha moments were for today.
My aha moment for today from this session, I got some actually cover ideas. So the mystery novel,
that's great.
the mystery that I'm thinking of, that I'm planning to write, I've got a great title already. I think I've got a great title. I don't know, but I've been trying to think of like what would it look like on the cover, and I think I've got some ideas now based on what we talked about and kind of the importance of tying the two in together. So I'm looking forward. Now I've got to write the book to get to that point. But yeah, I hope. I think it's going to be great. This is going to be fun.
I'm so glad you said that, because my aha, I'm not very good at writing titles. And I never thought about the importance of just read a bunch of titles in your genres. We do that with query letters. We do that with first pages. But for some reason, it never dawned on me to just like use the words. So when Teresa was talking, you were talking about Death's Legacy and Death's Legacy. And then she was sending in death, right? That's how it ends, I think you said. And so you're just taking like tonal words from the genre, the dark, shadow, death, tone words that are going to create tone and mood in the novel.
Yeah.
And then you kind of play with them to create a catchy title. And I had never thought of doing that. And so I'm like always fighting with what my title should be. And here's an obvious hack, the great title.
Yeah. Title, I find that title piece fun. Like I usually come up with the title first.
Ooh.
Oh,
Teresa and
Which
I are
is
not
really
those
weird.
people.
no. I'm usually like, somebody please help me write a title.
Yeah, Teresa and I are like, do you have an idea? No. Do you have an idea? No.
Yeah.
But now I have at least a game we can play to get our ideas.
There you go.
Right?
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
I like it.
All right,
I like
Teresa,
it.
finish this off. What are you thinking?
I think my aha moments is I want to write a mystery, but I won't. Because I'm gonna do better about sticking to genres.
Fairies in space mystery.
I know, right? And I think this just keeps coming up for me. And so I think it's the universe just keeps on slamming it into my face with start with the character. Don't start with the plot, start with the character. And for whatever reason, it just keeps on coming up. So I need to make sure I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I tend to, I'm a combination pantser and plotter.
Mhm.
And my pantser part is really defining who my character is and kind of following them for the first few chapters and seeing what kind of mess they get into.
Mhm.
And then once I get stuck, that's when I pull back and start plotting more.
That's
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
That's an inciting incident, and that's exactly how I write.
Yep. Precisely.
And then I start plotting excess. Like after the midpoint, it's like, oh, now we have to actually really plot and
Yeah,
like
no,
bring
yeah.
all that other stuff back. Yeah.
I got to use that MFA. Let me bring these studies in.
I like it.
So your homework, if you choose to accept it, would be ideas for how to come up with great titles.
That'd be great.
Because Teresa and I need help. So on the Discord or at the bottom of this video, wherever you find it, we would love help with how you come up with amazing titles. And follow us on social media. Where can they find us, Teresa?
Everywhere. So Facebook is really good to follow us, and our Discord is the best place. That's where we hang out the most. So if you want to chat with us, come find us on our Discord.
Thank you so much. Please check out Dennis K. Crosby's book. They are Death Legacies and Death Debt. And where can they find them? On Amazon, is that right?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can order them from your favorite local bookstore if you'd like, through indiebound.com. You can go to my website as well, denniskcrosby.com. It's got a listing of all my books and purchase links as well.
Thank you.
Ooh,
All right.
One more thing. Listeners,
Go for it.
tell us your favorite true crime podcast so I can get addicted to.
Oh, that's good homework. That's good
I really want to
homework.
know what they're listening to because I bet I want to listen to. Thank you so much for coming, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Listening.
All right.
Bye, everyone.